If these allegations are proven true or not, Vince McMahon is done. Possibly the name of McMahon will never ever be spoken in a positive light again. But here's the other problem. It's not just how it affects him, it's how it filters down throughout the WWE, who knew what, who knew when, etc, etc, etc. And that could be the ultimate nail in the coffin for everything that we know and love about wrestling. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Creative Business Made Simple, the only show that helps you get from where you are to where you want to be in your business endeavors and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us again in this episode of the Vince McMahon sexual trafficking allegations. We've been talking all sorts of different things and all sorts of different lessons that you can pull and learn from the situations that are going on, obviously, with McMahon. For those that are just joining us at this point in the show, McMahon has been accused of quite heinous and sickening sexual traffic allegations against a young lady. And the official document that's over 100 pages long is absolutely is just absolutely horrific. And just before we went to break, we were talking about the impact that this has. So when you're in business and you have staff, you've got a team, you've got, anybody, whether you're in big or small business, you literally are responsible for them. There's what's called the duty of care, which means you've got to take care of their mental health, you've got to take care of their physical well-being. You don't put them into situations that they are not comfortable with, and you've got to be aware of all of these different things. And it's as simple as that. You try to be aware of your actions and you do calculated risk management and crisis management basically for everything that you do. Obviously, in this case, McMahon has been accused of sexual trafficking, basically of a lady. This isn't the first time that this has come out. And basically what we've been talking about here is sickening and quite heinous, quite honestly. Psychologically, just looking at it from the lady's point of view, I think one of the big questions that I jotted down at about 4 o'clock in the morning when this came out was, the big question is why? Jim Cornette had said in the years that he worked for McMahon, which was 93 to 99, that he never ever heard McMahon doing anything like this. McMahon didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, he was always business. That was McMahon. He never heard of anything like this coming out. Now that McMahon is older, and we're talking about 78 years old, again, if you've read any of my books, you've listened to any of the conferences, the talks, anything that we've been talking about, you will know very, very well that I firmly believe nothing ever just happens, ever, regardless of what it is. Nothing ever just happens. There is always a trigger, there is always something that makes the activity happen. So the picture didn't just fall off the wall. It might be, inadequate, assembly when you were putting the picture up, or it might have been that there was, an earthquake, or it might have been that, some DIY digging was going out in the road. But either way, that picture didn't just fall off the wall. Something had to happen to make it happen. And it's the same with McMahon. Why would a multi-billionaire wrestling legend of a major corporation suddenly behave this way? And I do have my own thoughts and theories on this. Again, we've talked about pornography conditioning. We've talked quite at length about McMahon losing power, getting older, wanted to prove that he still, could do something, that he still was a man. And some people have that. From the face of it, looking at this, and again, looking at McMahon when he came back to WWE in 2022, he was wearing a pink bandana, a pink suit, and he had a mustache, which really didn't suit him. But that's by the by, that's personal preference. Was it an old life crisis? Again, you can sort of play games, and I think sometimes, not that it's fun to play games in terms of thinking what could have been, but I think it has to be considered. McMahon's state of health, as we've talked about, Cornette makes a great point, which was McMahon had multiple shots to the head with the chair, without doing a brain scan, CT scan, all that kind of stuff. That there is no way to categorically, definitively determine whether or not McMahon does have some form of brain damage or Alzheimer's, dementia, all of that kind of stuff. I think that should be, definitely be taken into consideration. And I think it should definitely be explored for sure. Again, if the opportunity came to actually speak to Paul Levesque, probably not Stephanie, because I think from what Cornette had said, Stephanie's been more or less dodging her father. She left in a couple of years ago when Vince McMahon came back to power. She came back when Vince left. She left again when Vince came back, and now obviously this has transpired. She's back again in the WWE. Is there an underlining factor there? Again, if and I would love, not from a, I know a lot of people want to do these things just because they want the views and the publicity and everything. I would love to sit down with Triple H, with Stephanie, with, ideally either one of those, and to have a full conversation where we're genuinely trying to get to the bottom of this and say, okay, what did you know? Ultimately, what I want to know is, did you notice any change in your father-in-law? Was there any odd behavior that was going on? Because this isn't a normal thing. Did you know of Vince McMahon using any form of pornography? It's not to defend McMahon, but as we've said right at the beginning, it is important to be objective, to actually look for the facts. And this is what a good investigator does. This is what a good researcher does. It's important to look at the facts. A lot of people out there will say, burn McMahon, it's horrible, it's heinous and everything. It's because you're acting out of emotion. How could he do this? I'm not interested in any of that, okay? I've already asked those questions. I've already concluded those answers. What I'm most interested in is, what are the facts? What actually happened? Not just on those dates. And we want to talk about that momentarily. Back in May 9th, 2020, specifically. We want to talk about what was his behavior like. Anytime I had seen McMahon publicly, on TV, on the internet, anything like that, it's like, what was there anything there? He certainly had a skipping his step when he was in Saudi Arabia last month or the month before for one of the events that was there with The Undertaker. They're obviously having a good time. Again, how far down does this filter? How does it impact and, affect everybody involved? It has been suggested that literally now, McMahon, the name of McMahon, you can't alter it. You can't alter what's been done. You can't utter the word McMahon. And if you are a McMahon, you might want to think about changing your name, because this is going to stick to you like super glue. Stephen P. New, legal attorney at law. We haven't talked about him much on this episode so far. I think we're going to change that now, because we now come to the point where he's talking about this. So, Stephen P. New, legal attorney at law, spoke about this in depth. The first thing that New spoke about was he feels that McMahon in particular has been given bad legal advice. And what he means by that is, like we said, however long ago now, McMahon literally was paying this lady who, again, for those of you that are just joining us, who he basically defecated in her hair, pimped her out, had multiple sexual altercations, threesomes, got other people involved, was sharing videos of her in the TV trucks. There was a lot of stuff that says, again, there's the document that's out there that if you haven't read it, haven't seen it already, I would strongly encourage you to do so as you're up to speed again factually, that you know what you're talking about. And this specifically, and I have to stress, this is the case that has been brought against McMahon. Okay, this isn't the definitive sort of thing. This is what the lady who is claiming McMahon has sexually abused her, assaulted her, mentally abused, etc., 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 has done. This is her side of the story. Okay, so the reason that Stephen Pinu had said that it was bad legal advice is because, literally, if you're a multi-billionaire and you have committed acts of this nature, you want to make it go away as quickly as possible from a professional point of view. Okay, again, we take out all the emotion, and this is directly from what Stephen had said. You want to make it go as way as fast as possible. And he basically said, if I was advising McMahon, you know, if it was 10 million, 15 million, 20, 25 million that he was being asked to pay and that he'd agreed to pay, he's like, pay it, just pay it. Because if this gets out into the public, if this gets out into the public sector, if this reaches your board of investors, your stockholders, your shareholders, you know, if this reaches your talent, if this reaches your competition, you know, this could destroy you, but not just you, your family. Because guess what? If people are sitting there saying, you know, well, I'm a female wrestler. Obviously, I'm not a female wrestler, but if you're a female wrestler and the WWE is the #1 place to go, or you're going to go to AEW and you are the best female wrestler on the planet, do you really want to go to WWE? Knowing that McMahon has paid off female talent in the past, and there's records of this, based on what Jim Cornette was saying and Brian Lass on their show, on Coney Drive-Thru. Do you really want to go to WWE? That was Stephen's advice. Basically, pay it off. Keep it as a non-disclosure, which means once you've had the money, or while you're being paid, you cannot talk about this to anybody. That is a loophole in the world of business, where basically, if you've got enough money, you can make these things go away. And people have been doing this around history. It's not just McMahon; it's a number of other people. Before you get all shocked and scared, I jotted down as well, in the business world, you want to avoid as much as possible putting skeletons into your closet. What that means is, don't do stupid acts. Okay, if you're having sexual encounters with people, don't do a whole lot of text things. Especially, don't do a whole lot of voice things. Be very, very careful about this. The only exception for this would be if it is mutually agreed upon and it's proven that it's mutually agreed upon. If you're forcing someone to do something that they don't want to do and it comes out, stop. Just stop. Seek professional help. Okay? And there is a lot of help that's out there. Vince's conduct as well. You know, it goes back, and I did a whole list of psychological analysis about this. I actually wrote down in my notes, you know, this will require further thought and research. You know, it's crazy, this behavior. The first 33 paragraphs in this document, which is this lady's accusation against McMahon, was basically about the facts, about how they met, how the conversation came about, how she started working at WWE, etc., etc., etc. And I think it's about paragraph 100 that that she gets to the acts. I mean, just as I'm reading this, you know, I'm so sickened and saddened for McMahon's grandkids, for his children, for his family, for anybody's family. You know, yeah, it's a 20-page legal document. It's 100 paragraphs. That's an amendment that I want to make. You can read it for yourself. So we want to move to a point now when this was taking place, and the first date of interest really that caught my attention was May 9th, 2020. Now, if you'll notice that date, you'll notice that something significant in the world's history was going on at that time. We were in lockdown. John Laurinaitis, who has also been implemented this, we've talked about him very loosely, as engaging in a three-way with McMahon and this young girl, lady, should I say, sorry. He did not live, as far as I'm aware, of Connecticut. I believe it was Arizona that he lived, but don't quote me on that. I will need to find that out for for confirmation. Okay, and somebody probably can go through that now. But basically, the world is in lockdown. They were running TV out of the Performance Center, which was in Florida. And then the question is, when was this taking place? You know, how was this taking place? McMahon, obviously, the allegations that have come across with regards to sex trafficking, what that is down to, and Stephen P. New talks about this, is literally because he was transporting, or he was going across state lines for the intention of sex. Now, again, as P. New broke this down, he said, well, if you're a college student and you're, you know, living in New York and your girlfriend lives in Philadelphia, and you're commuting, you know, technically you are breaking the law. That's by American Constitution, you know, yeah. That's the American law for you. So is there a case to be made? But I think the fact that it is, you know, you see sex trafficking and immediately you think child trafficking, because that's very obviously current in our world, very relevant in our world, and, you know, immediately rings alarm bells. So I don't like the fact, you know, it's been labeled as sex trafficking. I would say sexual misconduct, manipulation, sexual abuse, premeditated misconduct, premeditated sexual abuse, narcissistic behavior, preconceived, you know, on and on and on and on and on. Gosh, there is so much that we are unpacking here. I'm just looking through my notes, as I said, because I want to make sure that I don't miss out anything really important here. So, as we get on to page, what have I got here? Page 2 in my documents. I'm sort of going, you know, in different orders here. An issue that's really interested here, and really interested me, was the fact that WWE, and I quote, and this is from Stephen P. New, WWE allowed a negligent sexual assault fostered and fostered a culture where this was allowed. It became well known as McMahon's, and I quote, bitch. People knew within the organization that this was going on. Now, again, as we said, what they knew, how much they knew, that is going to be determined. If this goes to court, all of that will be found out. As Stephen P. New talked about, it will be I don't know where I put my sheet. So we talk about rules of civil procedure. And a rule of civil procedure means not to allude to everything that has happened, but also, according to P. New, this is one of the most detailed reports ever read. I had a note that of the next steps. And it's basically, it's an inquiry. So if this goes to court, McMahon will be served. And the way that McMahon will be served was a real source of interest to me, because literally someone can be hired for, you know, 25 grand and up to camp out to find McMahon. They've got 90 days to serve this. I think it's called a subpoena in the United States. Laurinaitis will be served as well. People will then start to have to appear, and obviously Stephanie McMahon will have to appear. Triple H, Paul Levesque will have to appear. Tony Khan, Bruce Pritchard. Probably the majority of WWE talent will be interviewed, if not all of them, to say, did you know anything? Mark Calloway will probably be interviewed. The Undertaker, did you know anything about it? All of McMahon's staff will be interviewed. This is not something that's just going to go away. This is something that is going to be, you know, this will go on for sure. Like I say, I mean, the fact of there's a number of questions here, and as we get set to take our last break, there's a number of questions that have been raised. WWE was sold in 2022, which really surprised me. Ronda Rousey, UFC super fighter champion, left WWE in 2022, I believe. I think it was actually the back end of 2022. You know, McMahon was asked to step down from his duties by and voted off essentially by Triple H, Tony Khan, and Stephanie McMahon, according to Jim Cornette and Brian Lass, who have read it and studied this far more than I have and digested it far more than I've had time to do over this point in time. The problem was McMahon held the majority share. I think it was 80%, and he voted himself back on. So when your daughter and your son-in-law and your business partner are voting you off the board of committee and everything else, there's something seriously wrong. We're going to talk about that and so much more when we return from break.